everyone, welcome back to another episode of Don't Panic. I'm your hostess, Sapphire Quarter. Welcome to a different random spot in my dad's office. I'm over here now because this isn't actually my space, it's his space, but it's also the only place I can film. So he decided to completely rearrange everything, which means now we're stuck with this piece of wall instead of that piece of wall. I've got all kinds of things to talk about with you guys today. The biggest election of the year just happened and it had an interesting conclusion, and I'm also covering two different pieces of the Israel-Hamas War. And since the war news is unfortunately pretty intense, I've also got two pieces of fluff news for you guys. Okay, so first of all, the oldest set of footprints in the Americas have just been found, and it possibly completely disproves the land bridge theory, which is so interesting to me. Okay, second of all, there's just like half bathhouse, half museum that's opening in Turkey, and it is so interesting. I had to share it. So let's start with the topic that everyone is talking about, the Israel-Hamas War. So Iran, you know Iran, that place that's far away. That wasn't my best joke, but it's like not a funny situation, so I've really been struggling to find jokes. So Iran is basically threatening to get involved in the war, and the US would rather it didn't do that. So, as a slight recap, Hamas is a terrorist organization. They launched a well-orchestrated surprise attack on Israel, which is a country that they have been hostile to for decades. They did it in such a way where it seemed like they wanted to cause as much outrage in Israel as possible. So they went into residential neighborhoods and they did horrific things to those unfortunate enough to be found. Hamas also took dozens of captives back into Gaza, where they're currently being hidden. Israel responded by declaring war and bombing the crap out of the densely populated territory. One of the worst things to me is that since Hamas is hiding the captives, Israel might actually hit its own citizens with the bomb strikes. A ground offensive by Israel is expected soon. Okay, so Hamas is trained and funded by... Hang on, why are those Hamas guys wearing jeans and t-shirts? I wear the same clothes as Middle Eastern terrorists. Wait, everyone wears jeans and t-shirts these days? What about cultural diversity and connecting to your history and ancestors? What about weather? Okay, what about Papua New Guinea? I mean, that's one of the most remote places on the planet. It doesn't matter? Everyone just wears the same clothes nowadays? Does that mean that of all the different styles of wearing cloth throughout history, jeans and t-shirts is the best one? I've gotten very off topic. So Hamas is funded by Iran and also trained by Iran. So this begs the question, how involved is Iran in the war? Just 3 days before the secret attack, Oman Khomeini tweeted out, quote, "Oman Khomeini once described the usurper Zionist regime as a cancer. This cancer will definitely be eradicated at the hands of the Palestinian people." So the US is saying that according to its intelligence, Iran had no idea the attack was going to happen. The US's bigger concern right now is making sure that Iran stays out. It's really complicated, but if Iran gets involved in the war, it could possibly bring in other groups like Hezbollah or even other countries. By the way, Hezbollah sounds like a club to go to or something like that. You guys want to go to Hezbollah? Yeah. That's what people who go to clubs sound like, right? So if those groups join in, it's just going to make the whole situation much bigger and messier and more complicated. And it seems pretty likely that Iran will join the war. According to Iranian state media, Iran's foreign minister said, quote, "If the Zionist regime's crimes against the Palestinian people and citizens continue, no one can guarantee that the situation in the region will remain the same." And I know what he's going for. It's clearly a threat, but it could also be interpreted as someone who legitimately doesn't know what's going to happen next. Guys, I'm just saying I don't know what's going to happen. If Israel doesn't stop, no one can say that nothing will not unchange. Maybe we're going to join the war. Maybe a Sharknado's gonna come. We just don't know. Iran made a lot of other vague statements along the same lines. Iran's foreign minister also said, quote, "They cannot remain a spectator." But again, the US is really pushing for no one else to get involved in the war. This is what Biden had to say about it.
And we stand ready to move in additional assets as needed. Let me say again, to any country, any organization, anyone thinking of taking advantage of this situation, I have one word: don't.
Much more straightforward. Thank you, Mr. President. So moving on to more about the war. The other story that caught my eye was the US working with Egypt to try to protect innocents in the Gaza Strip. So with Israel probably about to launch a land offensive into Gaza, there is inevitably going to be ordinary citizens caught in the crossfire. In fact, Israel actually told 1.1 million people to get out of northern Gaza. But where are all those people going to go? So the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, is trying to make sure that the refugees have a way out, including the hundreds of US citizens currently in Gaza. So the Gaza Strip is surrounded by Israel on two sides, and then on the other side you have the Mediterranean Sea, which is just not a great option unless you have a really good boat. So there is one other place where they can go. So Gaza shares a small border with Egypt to its south, which is really close to a town named Rafah, but so far it's been closed. And it's not hard to see why. Egypt doesn't want tons of refugees swarming them, and instead wants to get aid into Gaza. Plus, Israel has bombed near the border crossing. So when asked about it, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, there is no way I pronounced that correctly, I'm so sorry, Richard. Anyways, he's the spokesperson for the Israel Defense Force, because Israel Army didn't sound cool enough, I guess. Quote, when we see Hamas targets moving, we will take care of it. But I imagine Egypt is kind of like, okay, yeah, but when we're trying to get humanitarian aid in, we don't want to get bombed, so can you, So what are we supposed to do here? Oh, and Hamas controls the border as well. So it's just a big, messy situation. But don't panic, there is hope. On 15th, Blinken said after a meeting with the Egyptian president, quote, Rafah will be open. We're putting in place with the UN, with Egypt, Israel, and others, the mechanism by which to get assistance in and to get it to people who need it. So fingers crossed for the hundreds of thousands of Palestinian people who are currently going south. I hope they can find the hope and safety that they need. Okay, so I also wanted to touch on... Okay, never mind. I'm done. We're moving on. I don't think I've ever been this excited to talk about Louisiana politics. For the first time in 8 years, Louisiana has a Republican governor. Attorney General Jeff Landry.
Tell me I didn't just say laundry. Laundry, Sapphire! We thought about this and we promised ourselves we were not going to say laundry. Landry! I don't have another take? Great.
He just won the race, beating out a ton of other candidates. He was endorsed by Trump and is promising to be tough on crime, probably because Louisiana has the second highest murder rate per capita in the country for some reason. It's gotta be New Orleans, right? Only New Orleans. I'm surprised New York isn't number one and number two. New York is the only place that I've ever lived where I saw someone threaten to kill someone else in public. We were on a train, 20 people heard him. I don't know what his plan was. I also don't know why he took his shirt off. It seemed unrelated at the time, but maybe it was connected somehow. Wait, the crime is from Shreveport? Where my Meemaw lives? In New York City doesn't even have a bad crime rate. Unsurprisingly, Landry is also taking a hard stance against LGBTQ issues, such as making it harder for trans minors to medically transition. On to the beginning of the fluff news. We're all done with the serious stuff. Okay, so a recent study just proved that the oldest footprints on the Americas were made 20,000 years ago. So why is that important? That's before the land bridge that supposedly connected Asia with North America. Not only does it entirely change the timeline for human settlement on the continent, but it also begs the question, how did people get here? The footprints were found in White Sands, New Mexico. The initial finds were posted in 2021, but people doubted their validity, so the scientists involved took another organism that was on the footprints or around the footprints and retested it and got the same results. We'll see if researchers can figure out the real way that humans got to America. In the meantime, on to Turkey. Wait a minute. Is it a coincidence that Hungary is right next to Turkey? So after spending 13 years restoring it, a bathhouse that used to serve customers back in the 1500s just reopened. This is such a cool opportunity for people to not only connect with their past, but enjoy classical art and, of course, get clean. I mean, take a look at some of these tiles and murals. They're hundreds of years old. They're just beautiful. It was also built by a 16th century architect called Mimar Sinan, so it's got this really cool layout. There's a dome, there's other cool stuff, but I don't know what the name of it is. It's going to be half bathing house, half museum. Oh, and according to the Good News Network, when they were restoring it, they actually found Roman artifacts. And they also found chambers built by the Byzantines to supply water to the surrounding areas. So this place has been a bathhouse or supplying water to the region for years. I want to go there so bad. I would even overcome the considerable awkwardness of bathing in public. Kind of glad we stopped doing that one. That's all the news I have for you today, guys. We'll talk about all the new craziness that comes out next time. I want to thank everyone that liked or commented or subscribed. It really helps the channel move forward. Thank you so much. I love you all.